Like many of you folks, I watched a lot of the proceedings at the Capitol on the 6th, live online, and I also had the television on. I was watching what I can, and certainly at first I was very gung-ho about, hey, they're stopping an unfair process from happening because of what Mike Pence just did. Mike Pence apparently just flat out lied about what he could or could not do and, did the wrong thing. And then people started storming into the Capitol, right? Other people were let in, right? But perhaps like a lot of you people, I was not aware of actual killings, except for Ashley Babbitt. And then all of a sudden, do you remember that, Tabby? We were standing here with our friend and we were watching the news. And I said to you guys, they just killed one of the people. And I showed you on the television. And yeah. But what I was not aware of the fact is that there are these allegations that some policemen were killed there. Now, I have seen video of policemen clearly being knocked to the ground and then dragged down steps and being hit as they're being dragged, their body unconscious. And that's extremely disturbing. And I certainly do not advocate for those kind of actions.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't prove that any of those were patriots, Trump supporters, or anything else.
Yes.
How Antifa and BLM happily rallied to go there dressed as Trump supporters. In fact, were caught on video changing into their Trump gear.
Oh yeah.
Out of their Antifa.
There's no doubt about that. There were people.
In order to do this. So if anybody was beating somebody and dragging them downstairs who was dressed as a cop, who in the fucking group is already accused and guilty of doing those very things?
Yeah, and since the 6th, we're recording this on January 30th, and since the 6th, a lot of information's come out. Certain people we know are Antifa types, certain people we know are not. There is a person, for example, who got inside the Capitol. I don't know if he was let in or not. I didn't see him doing anything violent, nor did I see him doing anything violent in Salem in December at their state capitol when he was there, and you folks can see him in my video about this. He was one of the people who was there, non-violent resistance, but certainly wanted to get in because, he was one of those people. Hey, we the people, we have a right to get in. Says so in the state constitution. We're going to get in. If you shoot me, you shoot me. I'm not going to shoot you back, but if you shoot me, you shoot me. Non-violent resistance, okay? So I know there are people in there that were on the far left and people who were certainly not on the far left. My point is that at first I was very much like, well, if they're going to interrupt the theft of an election, if that's indeed what's going on here, I am all for it. But I'm certainly not for any killing of anybody in the process. And yes, it is a very important point that Tabby brings up, is that we don't know who was doing that. And in a lot of cases, we don't know if it actually happened, because immediately reports coming out saying this and that and the other thing happened, and you go chasing the facts, and sometimes they lead to bullshit. And other times they lead to video of the event actually happening, and there's no denying that happened. Just don't know exactly who did it or why. But in some cases, it seems to be lying. There was a case where I think it was Officer Sicknick, where his own family said, we don't think he was killed at the Capitol. We think he was just ill, and, he sustained a minor injury at the Capitol. And also his views were not, not so very convenient for the mainstream media, because he was not exactly okay with the, what was going on with the theft of the election, if that's indeed what was going on. And he believed it was. And, anyway, my point is that it gets very sticky after that. And I'm certainly not for, and I'm also not a hardcore pacifist either by any stretch of the imagination. I just don't think that, innocent people who might actually be sympathizing with the stopping of the theft of the election getting murdered because they happen to be there doing their job or whatever. And yes, it's very important to realize that some of these people were not Trump supporters, and some of these people were not conservative, some of these people were not libertarian, some of these people were not pro-American, some of these people may have been government agents. Some of what the news said about people dying was not freaking true. Some of the people were let in. Other people clearly pushed their way in, and some people were clearly let in. I've proved that on my channel, and other people obviously have proved as well. So it's a very complex situation. So I started working on a chart I also have many, many, many conversations with many people who feel very strongly one way or the other or some shade in between about these things, and I have the following charts. Some people are like the following. Here's a flow chart. The question being, was it right to enter the Capitol and interrupt the procedure? Starting position, or starting question. The question arises, were they patriots or Antifa? In the minds of some people. This is certainly not all people. So the answer could be patriots. And if it was patriots, then some people are going to say, no, it was not right because they're patriots. And again, this is a team sports kind of thing for a lot of people. And for those same people, if the answer to the question, were they patriots or Antifa, is Antifa, then their response to that would be, yes, it was right for them to enter the Capitol and to interrupt the procedure. There are other people, when faced with the same question, was it right to enter the Capitol and interrupt the procedure, ask, were they patriots or Antifa? And if the answer would be patriots, they would say, yes, it was right for them to enter the Capitol and interrupt the procedure. But if the answer to that last question is Antifa, they would say, no, it was not right.
Which is a hypocritical statement.
Of course. So
It
there,
is or it isn't.
right, there are hypocrites on either side, is my point there. And of course, I'm not saying this applies to all people. I would argue maybe most people. Maybe not. But the following is, I guess, me. Question being, was it right to enter the Capitol and interrupt the procedure? Were they patriots or Antifa? Well, besides the fact that there's probably a mixture of a lot of different kinds of people there, it's irrelevant. Whether or not it was right for them to enter, their political leanings are irrelevant. Their actions is what matters to me in this context. Then I ask, were they interrupting the theft of an election? Again, I don't pretend to know, so I do not know. Leading me to a sort of question mark, not really a dead end, but just the position that I'm in as of right now. But if the answer were no, then I would say, no, it wasn't right. If they were not interrupting the theft of an election, then that means that they would be interrupting a fair election, and that's not okay because, the will of a few people, you don't have a right to interrupt the process that involves America, all of us. But if the answer is, yes, they were interrupting the theft of an election, well, then the question might arise in my mind, did they break in or were they allowed in? But then I say, well, actually, it's irrelevant whether they are allowed in or whether they broke in. If they're interrupting a unfair election, you got to do what you got to do, but do it with non-aggressive principle. Do it as non-violently as possible. Don't hurt innocent people ever. So then I ask, did they initiate physical violence? If the answer is no, then I ask, did they use violence of any kind to get in? And if the answer to that is no, then I would answer, yes, it was right for those people to enter into the Capitol to interrupt the theft of a fair election. But if the answer to did they use violence of any kind to get in is yes, then I ask, was it absolutely necessary? If the answer is no, then I don't really know what to say about that. I can say it's not right to do that, but if it was the case that those people were stopping the theft of an election, and then some people did some horrible things, like initiated violence, were violent against innocent people, or just did some horrible things, that's horrible. But does that mean that the stopping of the theft of an election is wrong? No. The stopping of the theft of an election itself is not wrong itself. That's not wrong itself. Some of the horrible things that were committed, at least as far as I can see, by some of those people, that inexcusable stuff is horrible. But that doesn't mean that stopping the theft of an election, if that's what they were doing, is itself wrong. Now, what if the answer to the question, was it absolutely necessary to use certain amounts of violence to get in, is yes? There are certain things I can't quite say, but Now, let's go back up a little bit. If the answer to the question, did they initiate physical violence, is yes, then of course you want to ask, was it absolutely necessary? And then whether or not the answer is yes or no, there's a lot of actions I'm going to freaking condemn. But the actual people who were there non-violently trying to stop the theft of an election, and if indeed that's what they were doing, they were doing the right thing. And it is unfortunate that this is a very This is a very messy thing, and I see a lot of people out there, they're not grappling with these questions at all. I mean, some people seem to just get it without really thinking about it's in their bones. I think Tabby's one of those people. With me, I actually am up at night. Sometimes literally slowly pacing at 4 a.m, thinking about certain things. And one of those things is this kind of stuff. And like I said, I am not a hardcore pacifist. I'm not an absolutist in that concept, but I definitely have a tremendous amount of respect for people who, and I've done this in the past, just not consistently, who will let the other person just hit them to prove a point about how they're just doing the right thing in some sort of protest or taking a stand in doing the right thing, doing the ethical thing. Sometimes, you take a beat down. I'm not an absolutist on this, and I certainly don't expect everybody to be like that. I mean, I wouldn't want to preach to anyone, say you should be that way too, but when I'm going to grapple with what I think is right and wrong, it tends to fall on the nonviolent side, but not absolutely. Until next time, folks, though, liberty, strength, honor, and integrity, and truth, and justice. And yes, the American way.
Get Biden as a pedo printed on face masks, shirts, coffee mugs, and more. Also get To Hell with Biden, Not My President printed. Get it before they shut down the store, because they will. And by the way, we make zero profit. Look at this. Look at this right here. Maybe we'll raise the prices if a few of you buy a few of these, but right now we just want to get these out. Buy these. Thank you.
Just in trouble now. The truth roll out. Just in trouble. Just in trouble now.
Thanks for watching. Just make sure you subscribe to us on alternatives to YouTube, because YouTube suspended me, and one more strike in 90 days and the channel is gone. Thanks for watching.